She was fired, disgraced, and dragged out like a criminal for stealing a cupcake she didn't even take. But 5 years later, she returned in heels, holding the deed to the building, and everyone who humiliated her had to clap. It started on a rainy Thursday morning, the kind of morning where the clouds hang low, and the air is heavy with the smell of soaked concrete. Lagos traffic was already building, horns blaring in chaotic symphony, but inside the glass headquarters of A&O Luxury Foods, the mood was serene. Clean floors, polished glass, air-conditioned silence. Maya was already there as usual, the cleaner, the shadow no one saw. She arrived before sunrise every day, wearing her faded green uniform with the company logo barely visible on her chest. Her hands were already red from scrubbing toilets and buffing floors by the time most of the staff began strolling in, carrying their Starbucks and phones. No one said good morning to Maya, not even Monica. Monica was the assistant to the CEO. Tall, pretty, sharp-tongued, and always dressed like she was going to court someone in the boardroom. She hated slackers. She hated mess. And most of all, she hated being ignored, which is ironic because that morning, when she stormed into the building with her Louboutin heels clicking across the tiles, she didn't notice Maya hunched beside the entrance, wiping off muddy footprints. "Out of my way," she hissed, nearly stepping on Maya's hand. Maya flinched and pulled her rag back. "Sorry, Ma." But Monica was already gone. 10 minutes later, the break room buzzed with idle chatter. Interns joked about deadlines. Someone reheated jollof rice in the microwave, and a box of pastries sat forgotten on the center table. Chocolate cupcakes. Branded. Likely left over from the executive brunch. Maya entered with her mop as instructed to clean the floors. No one paid her any attention. She worked quickly, careful not to disturb the suits in their bubble of importance. But then she saw it. A lone cupcake left in the corner of the box. She hadn't eaten that morning. Her stomach tightened. She looked around. No one was watching, or so she thought. She picked it up, sniffed it. A soft smile touched her lips. She didn't plan to take it, just to admire it. Maybe take a tiny bite and throw the rest away. Something sweet to remember a hard morning by. She bit into it, and that's when everything unraveled. "Did you just take that?" Someone shouted. Maya turned. One of the junior staff was pointing. His voice rang through the break room. Heads turned. The silence that followed was louder than question. Monica appeared in seconds, like a lioness catching the scent of fear. "What's going on here?" "She's stealing company property," the staffer replied. "That cupcake is from the CEO's brunch." Maya opened her mouth. It was just there. "I didn't mean." Monica didn't wait. Security. It happened in slow motion. 2 bulky guards entered. Maya stood frozen, the bitten cupcake still in her hand. One of them grabbed her arm. The other took her mop and tossed it aside. "You're done here," Monica said coldly. "Thieves don't deserve second chances." Maya felt heat rise in her cheeks. "It was just a cupcake. I didn't know. I clean up after everyone here every day. I thought it was thrown away." "Is that your excuse for stealing?" Monica barked. "Do you steal at home too?" "Huh. Maybe that's why you're just a cleaner." Gasps echoed. Phones came out. Someone recorded. Others just stared. Maya's eyes blurred with tears as they dragged her toward the exit. Her apron slipped. One shoe came off. Her dignity unraveled with every step. She was thrown outside, into the rain, with cupcake crumbs in her hand, and a crowd behind the glass walls watching in silence. The security guard tossed her bag at her. It burst open. Her lunch container, a worn Bible, and a photograph of her late mother scattered on the wet pavement. No one helped her pick them up. "Thief," someone muttered. She knelt and gathered her things slowly, shaking. 4 or 5 years, she had cleaned this building. 5 years, 6 days a week. She had watched staff rise and fall, watched employees come and go, but she had never missed a shift, never stolen a thing. And for what? A cupcake? She walked away in the rain, barefoot, humiliated, hungry. She didn't know where to go. Her rent was already overdue. Her landlord had threatened eviction. Her phone was dying. Her wallet was empty, and her heart was breaking. But as she sat under the rusted shelter at the bus stop, the cupcake still in her hand, Maya made a vow. They call me a thief for a cupcake. One day, I'll buy that entire company and fire every last one of them. At the time, it felt like a fantasy. But fate had already heard her. And fate was about to introduce her to someone who would change everything. Someone who didn't see a thief. Someone who saw a survivor. She had nothing left. No job, no home, not even her dignity. But a stranger with a laptop and a quiet smile would become the key to a future she never imagined. The rain hadn't stopped. Maya sat under the old rusted bus shelter, like a ghost, her soaked uniform clinging to her skin. People passed by, umbrellas raised, shoulders hunched, but no one looked at her. She was invisible again, only this time, not by choice. Her plastic lunch container lay cracked in her lap, and inside it was what remained of the cupcake that ruined her life. She hadn't touched it since. Buses roared past, too full or too fast. Her hands trembled, not from the cold, but from everything that had just collapsed. 5 years of quiet labor, erased by one misunderstanding. She held her mother's photo in her hand. It was bent now, the edges curling from the wet. Her mother's eyes still looked calm. Maya used to draw strength from that photo. Now it just reminded her how alone she truly was. "Excuse me," came a voice. Maya jerked her head up. She hadn't heard anyone approach. Standing there, in jeans and a dark hoodie, was a man holding a silver laptop under his arm. His sneakers were dusty, but his glasses gave him a scholarly air. His voice was soft, almost careful. "Are you okay?" he asked. She blinked at him. Noah had asked her that all day. He looked down at the broken cupcake in her lap, then back at her face. He didn't look disgusted, just curious. "You look like someone who just lost everything," he said quietly. Maya swallowed. Her throat was dry. She wanted to cry, but the tears wouldn't come anymore. "I did," she whispered. He nodded and crouched beside the bench. "Can I sit?" She moved slightly, surprised. He sat down, opened his laptop bag, and pulled out a bottle of water. He offered it to her. "I'm not a creep," he added. "Promise. I just saw you sitting here and something told me to stop." Maya took the bottle with trembling hands. "Thank you," she murmured. He looked at her uniform. The company logo was still faintly visible. "A&O?" he asked. She nodded slowly. "Cleaner?" Another nod. He leaned back against the cold metal of the shelter. "They let you go?" Maya clenched her jaw. "They threw me out. Accused me of stealing a cupcake." His eyebrows lifted. "A cupcake?" She laughed bitterly. "Just one. Left on a table. Probably trash." But someone screamed, and in security, she shook her head. They didn't even ask questions. Just dragged me out like a criminal. The man was silent for a while. Then he said something that startled her. "What would you do if you had 100,000 naira right now?" She stared at him. Was this some kind of test? Was he playing with her? "Why?" she asked cautiously. He shrugged. "Call it curiosity. I believe in second chances." "So what would you do?" Maya looked down at her hands. "I bake," she said softly. "I know how. My mother taught me before she passed. Cupcakes, chin-chin, meat pies. I used to sell them in school." He nodded. "Why haven't you?" She gave a dry laugh. "Baking takes ovens. Ingredients. Time. Money. Things I don't have." He reached into his backpack and pulled out his phone. After a moment of tapping, he held it out to her. The screen showed a transfer confirmation. 100,000 transferred to Maya A. Johnson. Maya's mouth opened. "What is this?" He smiled. "A startup fund. A test. A risk. Call it whatever you like. I think you've suffered enough for a cupcake." Maya didn't speak. Couldn't speak. He closed his laptop and stood. "There's a bakery supply shop 2 streets from here. Tell them Kelvin sent you. They'll help you. It won't be easy, but it's a start." She looked up at him, eyes wet. "Why me?" He paused. "Because I know what it's like to be underestimated. And because sometimes the people who fall the hardest rise the strongest." He walked away, disappearing into the rain. Maya sat there, staring at the alert on her phone, tears now falling freely. Her stomach still ached. Her clothes were still wet. But something inside her had changed. Hope, real hope, and a quiet voice in her head whispered. With 100,000 naira and a stranger's belief, Maya began her journey not in a fancy kitchen, but in a borrowed stove behind a neighbor's window. Her first sale didn't bring profit. It brought tears. The next morning, the sky was brighter, but Maya's world was still heavy with uncertainty. She clutched her small purse with trembling hands. The bank alert still open on her phone. 100,000 naira. It might as well have been 1,000,000. She hadn't seen that amount of money in one place since her mother died. She had barely slept. The few hours of rest she managed were filled with dreams of burning ovens and laughing executives. But morning came anyway, and she forced herself up, cleaned her shoes, and tied her hair back. She stared at herself in the mirror, pale and puffy-eyed. The cleaner uniform was gone. It felt strange to be in regular clothes, even if they were faded and loose. She took a bus to the address Kelvin had mentioned, a bakery supply shop called Sweet Rye Supplies. It was tucked behind a row of mechanic shops, almost hidden, but when she walked in, it felt like walking into a different world. The shop smelled like vanilla and cinnamon. Shelves lined with flour bags, baking powder, trays, spatulas, and industrial-sized butter blocks. A woman at the counter, plump and friendly, looked up. "You must be Maya," she said warmly. Maya froze. "Yes. How did you know?" "Kelvin told us you'd come. You have store credit here. Let's get you started." That day, Maya left the shop with a second-hand mixer for bags of flour, butter, sugar, vanilla essence, and packaging boxes. She couldn't afford an oven yet, but her neighbor, Annie Funk, had a small kitchen oven and agreed to let her use it at night for shared profits. That night, Maya stayed up until 2 a.m. She baked in silence. Her hands remembered what her heart had forgotten, the way her mother used to hum as she stirred, the way she used to shape chin-chin on their small wooden table, the way customers used to come back for her puff-puff during school break. She baked 60 cupcakes. Plain chocolate. No toppings. Just soft, warm, heartfelt cake. By morning, her back ached, but her heart beat with new energy. She packed them carefully, tied ribbons around the boxes, and walked door to door to offices near Marina and Broad Street. At first, people shooed her away. Security guards blocked her. Secretaries looked at her like she was wasting their time. But one man took a box. A banker. He paid her 600. "Tell your sister she did well," he said. She smiled faintly. It was her. That afternoon, Maya made 6,400 in total. Not much, but enough to buy more butter. She used 2,000 to pay off part of the rent she owed. She used the rest to buy more supplies. And again that night, she baked. This time, she added a swirl of icing. Her fingers were clumsy. She spilled sugar. She burned one batch. But the next day, she sold out again. Word began to spread. In 3 weeks, she was supplying 5 offices. In 2 months, she was catering small birthday parties. In 6 months, she had saved enough to buy a used oven. It sat in her tiny room like a trophy. Her first real oven. She cried that night. The cupcake had humiliated her, but it had also reminded her of who she used to be. Her mother once said, "God allows fire not to burn you, but to bake you." She understood now. Every insult, every mockery, every slam of the door. It was the heat she needed. Soon, she rebranded. Maya's Bites became her business name. She designed a logo using free apps, printed stickers, bought branded boxes. She got help from a cousin who worked in a printing shop. He helped her set up an Instagram page. She posted pictures daily. Behind the scenes of her baking, quotes her mother used to say, feedback from customers. Slowly, her following grew. From 20 to 100. From 100 to 500. Then to 5,000. One day, a popular food blogger ordered from her. She posted a review that went viral. Orders flooded in. Maya couldn't keep up. She hired 2 local girls to help her, trained them, paid them daily. They called her Madam and followed her around like shadows. She still lived in one room, still baked through the night. But now, people were beginning to call her the Cupcake Queen of Lagos. And every time she walked past the gates of A&O Luxury Foods, she looked up, smiled, and whispered, "Wait for me." Because revenge wasn't about shouting. It was about building. And Maya was building something no one could ignore. She was still baking from a borrowed kitchen, but her name was now whispered in boardrooms. The same people who once called her a thief were unknowingly eating her cupcakes at their children's birthday parties. The day Maya got her first bulk order, she didn't celebrate. She cried, not because she was overwhelmed, but because it came from a company she once cleaned for. Not A&O, not yet, but a finance firm that shared their building. They had no idea who she was. They found her business on Instagram and ordered 200 cupcakes for a staff retreat. She delivered them in a cab she could barely afford. When she arrived, the receptionist glanced at her and said, "Delivery? Bring it to the boardroom." She stepped into the same corridor she used to mop on her knees. This time, heads turned, not because she was a cleaner, but because the scent of her cupcakes filled the entire hallway. People clapped. They smiled. One woman said, "Whoever made these deserves a raise." Maya said nothing. She just nodded, placed her invoice on the table, and left. Outside, in the cab, she broke down, because the world was finally tasting her. Her customer base tripled within months. Her Instagram was booming. She had over 15,000 followers now. Her cousin helped her run online ads. A woman from Ghana ordered a box for her sister's wedding in Lagos. A schoolteacher from Ibadan messaged her, saying her daughter wanted Maya's bites for her birthday, because it was now what all the cool kids had. Maya still didn't have a bakery. She baked out of Annie Funk's kitchen at night and packed everything in the morning. But her brand had grown beyond her room. She was invited to speak at a local women's business event. She wore her mother's old lace blouse, iron flat, and stood before 30 women. Her hands trembled, but her voice didn't. She told them her story. The cupcake, the humiliation, the man with the laptop, the sleepless nights. By the time she finished, the room was silent. Then came applause. One woman stood and hugged her. That night, 3 women from the event placed orders. And one of them, a reporter from a lifestyle magazine. 2 weeks later, Maya was on the cover of the small business section, under the headline, "The Cupcake That Changed Your Life." But not everyone was happy. At A&O Luxury Foods, whispers had begun. Monica heard about Maya's bites through a casual conversation in the break room. "Have you heard of this cupcake vendor? Maya's bites?" One of the interns said, "I think she used to work here. Or maybe I saw her once. She looks familiar." Monica froze. She hadn't thought of Maya since the day she had her thrown out. But something about the name scratched at the back of her mind. She brushed it off. There were thousands of Mayas in Lagos, but the name stuck. She Googled it. There was the logo, the boxes, the pictures, the face. And there it was, Maya, in a clean apron, smiling beside trays of cupcakes, smiling in interviews, smiling in events, gaining followers by the hour. Monica clenched her jaw. "No way," she muttered. The boardroom buzzed that week. A&O was losing market share. Their snack line had declined. Sales were weak. A rebranding pitch was scheduled. The marketing team suggested something new. "Let's try a collab," one of them said. "This Maya's Bites brand is blowing up. It'll help us tap into a new audience." Monica nearly dropped her tablet. She stood up. Absolutely not. The room turned to her. "It's just a suggestion," the brand manager said. Monica shook her head. "That woman is not a professional. We don't associate with people like that." But the seed had already been planted. Later that night, Maya got an anonymous email from someone at A&O. "They're talking about you in their boardroom." Monica is fuming. "You're winning." Maya didn't reply. She didn't need to, because recognition had come, even from the people who tried to erase her. And that was the real victory. She wasn't loud. She didn't shout for attention. But Maya had become the storm no one saw coming, quietly infiltrating, and soon owning what was once taken from her. The next few months were filled with rapid change. It was like watching a train gaining speed, unstoppable but silent, until it was too late to stop. Maya's cupcake business was no longer just a small venture in a borrowed kitchen. Her name was everywhere now. Maya's Bites wasn't just popular in Lagos. It was reaching the edges of West Africa. She had contracts with local bakeries, cafes, and even a few five-star hotels. She was on the verge of something monumental. But that wasn't all. Behind the scenes, Maya was growing her empire. She wasn't just baking cupcakes. She was buying up shares in small food companies. She was connecting with investors. She was building partnerships with suppliers. Slowly, carefully, her business network was expanding. The same people who once ignored her now wanted her to be a part of their world. And she was about to make her biggest move. One rainy evening, as Maya sat in her small office, now filled with the scent of fresh pastries and a view of the bustling Lagos streets, she received a call. She didn't recognize the number, but the voice on the other end was one she knew well. It was from the A&O Luxury Foods boardroom. Miss Johnson, the voice said, cool and professional. We'd like to propose a meeting. There's an opportunity we'd like to discuss with you. Maya's fingers tightened on her pen. The call wasn't a coincidence. The universe had a funny way of bringing people back to where they started. But Maya wasn't a girl who'd been thrown out for a cupcake anymore. She had more than the world expected. Sure, she replied, masking her smile. Let's set a time. When the meeting day arrived, she dressed in a tailored navy suit. It wasn't her usual uniform of baking attire, but she knew she didn't need to wear a chef's coat anymore. She was about to enter a room full of people who didn't expect her to sit at the table with them. But she would. She arrived at A&O's headquarters, the same glass building that had once thrown her out. Security buzzed her in. The receptionist greeted her like she was just another client. As she passed the familiar hallways, Maya felt nothing. No anger. No resentment. Just a calm resolve. She was no longer the woman who had been dragged out over a cupcake. She was the woman who had come to take what was rightfully hers. The boardroom was filled with executives who didn't recognize her at first. They were busy sorting papers, reviewing slides, unaware of the force about to walk through the door. But when Maya entered, the room fell silent. She didn't need to introduce herself. Instead, she walked ahead of the table and took a seat. The CEO, now gray-haired and older than she remembered, raised an eyebrow. He recognized her at last. Maya Johnson, he said, half smiling. It's been a while. What can we do for you? She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she placed a small folder in front of him. It was thick, official. He flipped it open. It was a proposal. A very detailed proposal to acquire A&O Luxury Foods. Her proposal didn't just include shares. It included connections. She had bought enough stock from multiple food companies, and now she was in control of a massive portion of the market. You made an interesting move, Miss Johnson, the CEO said, his voice now cautious. But why would you want to take over a company like ours? You built something successful on your own. Maya smiled, the corner of her lips curling in a way that sent a chill down his spine. I'm not interested in building something new, she said. I'm interested in what's already mine. The room shifted. The executives exchanged uncomfortable glances. They hadn't expected this. They thought they could buy Maya's brand, collaborate with her, maybe even hire her as consultant. But what she was offering was an absolute takeover. Maya wasn't interested in being part of their world. She was interested in owning it. Maya had played this game carefully. She had gained enough control over smaller companies in the food industry to become the key player. Now, she had everything she needed control A&O, the very company that had humiliated her. She had more leverage than they could have imagined. After a long pause, the CEO nodded. You're a force to be reckoned with, Miss Johnson. It seems we have no choice but to listen to your proposal. The deal took months to finalize. Legal teams, negotiation tables, and endless phone calls. But Maya had come this far, and she wasn't about to back down. Every step was calculated. Every word was a calculated move in her silent takeover. And when the final signatures were made, the company was hers. Maya didn't celebrate. She didn't throw a party. There was no loud announcement. She just sat at her desk, her fingers tapping gently on the polished surface. The moment she had dreamed of had come true, but the journey didn't end here. It had only just begun. The first thing she did, she called Monica. She didn't waste time with pleasantries. Just one sentence. I'm here to take what was mine. And in the background, someone was already preparing her new office at ANO Luxury Foods. Because Maya had become the very thing she had once been told she'd never be. The boss. She had built an empire, but the final piece of the puzzle was the one that had torn her down. This time, she would walk through ANO's doors not as a cleaner, but as its owner. And Monica would have no choice but to watch her rise. Maya's footsteps echoed in the hallway of ANO Luxury Foods. It had been months since she last walked through these halls. But now, she wasn't just a cleaning staff member. She was the one who controlled the building, who would decide the fate of every person in the room. She wasn't invisible anymore. The floors still gleamed, polished like they had been the day they tossed her out. But this time, Maya didn't stop to mop. She walked with purpose, her heels clicking sharply against the marble and her eyes set ahead. The moment she walked into the boardroom, she could feel the shift in the air. The once bustling, confident staff had all turned to her in shock. The CEO, the same man who had called her a thief all those months ago, looked up, his face drained of color. He recognized her instantly. She didn't sit at the table this time. She stood. In front of her were the people who had once mocked her. Monica, the CEO, several others who had crossed her path in one way or another. But Maya didn't see them as enemies anymore. She saw them as obstacles. And she was done with obstacles. She placed a proposal on the table. It wasn't a new proposal. It was the same proposal she had presented months ago. The one that had once seemed impossible. The one that had felt like an impossible dream. But now, it was not only a reality. It was hers. The CEO looked at the document. Then he glanced at Monica, whose face had turned as pale as his. Are you going to sign? Maya asked calmly. Monica opened her mouth, but no words came out. She tried again. This isn't how this works, Monica stammered. You can't just come in here and take everything. You'll ruin everything we've built. Maya shook her head. You never saw me as someone who could build anything. But here we are. She turned her gaze to the rest of the board members, their eyes shifting uneasily. Maya wasn't just here to take the company. She was here to claim her rightful place. 5 years ago, you threw me out for a cupcake. Now, I'm here to take the company you built. You threw me away, but you never knew who I really was. You never knew what I was capable of. She paused, letting her words sink in. The room was silent. I don't just want your company, she continued. I want to make it better. I want to change how you see the world. I want to teach you how to value people, how to value their hard work. You never saw me as more than a cleaner, but now, I own everything you worked for. The CEO stood up. He was trying to maintain his composure, but it was clear he was no longer in control. He was powerless against her. You've made your point, he said, his voice shaky. But this isn't going to be easy. You don't know what you're getting into. Running a company like ANO isn't just about making cupcakes. Maya smiled softly. No, it's about making something from nothing. And I've been doing that for a long time. She turned to Monica, who stood at the back of the room, her arms folded tightly across her chest. Maya could see the hate in her eyes, but it wasn't the kind of hate that scared her. It was the kind of hate that made her realize she had won. I've already signed the documents, Maya said to the CEO. I have controlling interest in ANO now. And if you don't want to work with me, then you can leave. This is my company now. The CEO sighed deeply. I guess we don't have a choice. Maya nodded. No, you don't. And just like that, Maya had claimed her victory. She didn't celebrate in the boardroom. There was no champagne, no fireworks, no grand announcement. She didn't need that. She'd already won. The people who had once scorned her were now at her mercy. But Maya wasn't about making others suffer. She wasn't here to tear people down. She was here to build. As she walked out of the boardroom, she looked at the familiar halls once again. This time, She wasn't walking with her head down. She wasn't invisible anymore. She was the one in charge. And for the first time in her life, she didn't feel like the one who had been thrown out. She felt like the one who had finally arrived. She had taken the throne, but now the real work began. Maya wasn't here just to claim victory. She was here to rewrite the rules. And she would do it, not with anger, but with vision. Maya stood at the window of her new office, gazing out at the bustling city of Lagos. The view from the top of the ANO Luxury Foods building was breathtaking, but it felt different now. It wasn't the view that made her feel on top of the world. It was the power of the control, the realization that she had built this empire from nothing. Behind her, the door opened. She turned, and the CEO walked in, his shoulders slumped. He looked like a man who had just lost everything, which he had. "Maya," he said quietly, his voice resigned. "We're here to support you. You've made your mark. But how do you plan to turn this company around?" Maya smiled. "I don't plan to just turn it around. I plan to make ANO Luxury Foods a name that everyone in this industry will respect. I'm going to redefine what luxury means in food." The CEO raised an eyebrow. "Luxury food? What do you mean?" Maya stepped toward her desk and picked up a folder from the pile of documents. She handed it to him. It was a detailed plan for the rebranding of ANO, one that combined high-end ingredients with sustainability and community-driven values. "We're going to do things differently," Maya continued. "I don't care about the outdated notion of what luxury is. It's time to focus on quality, ethics, and sustainability. People want food that speaks to their values, not just their taste buds. We're going to lead that change." The CEO flipped through the pages, nodding slowly. "I see what you mean, but you've got competition. The food industry isn't just about quality anymore. It's about status connections." Maya nodded, "And that's where we'll stand out. ANO has always been known for its exclusivity. We'll keep that, but we'll also appeal to a new generation, one that cares about the planet, fairness, and the people behind the product. We'll create a brand that people trust, not just a luxury product they admire from afar." She paused and let that sink in. "I've been where they are," she added, her voice steady. "I know what it's like to have nothing. I know what it's like to feel invisible. And I know what it's like to rise up against all odds. That's what ANO will stand for." The CEO sighed and sat down. "You've got the vision. I can see that. But how do you plan to execute this? How do we get people to take us seriously again?" Maya smiled again. "We're going to start by shaking up the industry. We'll create collaborations with local farmers, artisanal producers, and chefs who share our values. We'll be transparent about our sourcing, and we'll push the boundaries of what people expect from a luxury food brand. We'll offer gourmet experiences, but we'll do it with a conscience." She walked over to the window and looked out once more. "It's not going to be easy, but I didn't build my brand to play it safe. I built it to challenge the status quo. And now, I'm here to do the same with ANO." The CEO stood up. "Well, I can't argue with that. If you're ready to make these changes, then I'm with you." Maya turned to him, her expression firm. "I am, and we're not stopping until we lead this industry." Over the next few months, Maya's vision began to take shape. She met with local suppliers, partnered with renowned chefs, and even launched a new line of sustainable packaging. She focused on creating high-quality products that appeal to both the rich and the conscientious consumer. But her journey wasn't just about food. It was about creating a company culture that aligned with her values. She implemented programs where employees get involved in the community, offering paid volunteering hours and promoting fair wages. ANO's new direction was met with both enthusiasm and resistance. While some executives adapted quickly, others struggled with the changes. The board meetings were tense, and some staff members were skeptical. But Maya kept pushing forward. She held firm in her belief that a company built on trust and values would win in the long run. As ANO's reputation grew, so did its impact. The media began to take notice of Maya's leadership. She was invited to conferences, featured in magazines, and even asked to speak at global food summits. Maya's story, the story of the cleaner who had been thrown out and had risen to the top, resonated with people all over the world. Yet, despite all the success, Maya remained grounded. She never forgot where she came from, and she never let the power go to her head. Her mission was clear: build a company that empowered people and made a difference in the world. One day, as she stood in front of a crowd of business leaders at an international conference, she shared her journey. She told them about the cupcake, about the humiliation, and about how that very moment had fueled her rise. "I didn't come here to get rich," she said, her voice steady. "I came here to prove that anyone, no matter their background, can build something meaningful. It's not about how many cupcakes you sell. It's about what you stand for." The applause that followed was deafening. Maya had finally done what she had always dreamed of. She had changed the food industry forever, and she had done it on her own terms. She had built an empire, but the real test wasn't in the business she built. It was in the lives she changed. And Maya was about to leave behind a legacy that would be remembered for generations. It had been years since Maya took over A&O Luxury Foods, and in that time, she had transformed not only the company but the entire food industry. She had gone from being the invisible cleaner to the owner of one of the most respected brands in the world. But now, as she stood in front of the company's headquarters, she realized that her journey was far from over. Maya had created a powerful brand, but now she was ready for something more. As she gazed out over the city from her office, she thought back to everything she had achieved: the cupcake that had humiliated her, the man with the laptop who had given her a chance, the sleepless nights spent baking, and the countless sacrifices. Everything had led to this moment. She had done more than just prove herself to the world. She had created a business that was changing lives. She had built A&O into a company that wasn't just about luxury. It was about values, integrity, and community. Maya's next step was clear. It wasn't about expanding further. It was about giving back. Maya began to implement an initiative within A&O to focus on creating job opportunities for people who, like her, had been overlooked and underestimated. She partnered with local schools, training programs, and food suppliers to provide employment to the underserved communities in Lagos. It wasn't just about profit anymore. It was about empowerment. She also created scholarships for young women interested in food science, culinary arts, and business management. She wanted to ensure that the next generation had the tools they needed to rise and succeed. But her biggest achievement came when she decided to start a foundation. The Maya Johnson Foundation was dedicated to supporting women in business, helping them get access to resources, mentorship, and financial support. It was a place where women from all walks of life could come together, share their stories, and create something greater than themselves. It wasn't easy. There were challenges. There were board meetings that tested her resolve, partners who doubted her vision, and competitors who tried to mimic her success. But Maya never wavered. She had built her empire not on promises but on action, and she wasn't going to stop now. In the media, Maya became a symbol of resilience. Her story was shared in books, documentaries, and business conferences. She was invited to speak on international stages, her words inspiring millions around the world. Maya was no longer just the owner of A&O Luxury Foods. She was a global icon for change and empowerment. Years passed. Maya's legacy continued to grow, and A&O became a household name known for its ethical approach to luxury. It wasn't just about the products, it was about the impact they had on the world. But one afternoon, as she sat in her office, Maya got a call that would change everything. It was from the UN Global Leadership Forum. They wanted Maya to be honored with the Global Leadership Award for her work in business, sustainability, and women's empowerment. When she received the award, standing on a grand stage before a room full of world leaders, Maya felt a sense of peace. It wasn't the recognition she had sought. It wasn't the money. It wasn't the power. It was the change she had made. She knew that her journey had been hard, but it had been worth it. She had built an empire, yes, but she had also created a movement. And that, in the end, was what mattered most. As Maya looked out at the crowd of young women who had gathered to see her receive the award, she knew that her work wasn't done. There were more lives to change, more voices to lift, and more opportunities to create. Maya's legacy would not just be written in the boardrooms or on the pages of magazines. It would be written in the hearts of the people she had inspired. And with that, she knew her work had only just begun. Her empire was built, but the real test was coming. The world had seen her rise. Now, they would see how far she would go to protect everything she had worked for. Maya sat in her office late one evening, the city lights below twinkling like stars. She had achieved so much, but a nagging feeling lingered in the back of her mind. It had been years since she took over A&O Luxury Foods, and yet she still felt as though her greatest challenge had yet to come. In the weeks that followed her international recognition, Maya's foundation grew. The Maya Johnson Foundation had provided scholarships, resources, and mentorship to countless women in business, and the impact was undeniable. She had established programs for young women entrepreneurs and had helped countless individuals from underserved communities rise to success. But not all was well in the world of business. Competition was fierce and new rivals had emerged, eager to dethrone Maya's position as a leading force in the luxury food industry. One company, in particular, posed a real threat: West Gold Foods, a massive conglomerate with deep pockets, and they had just launched a competing brand that was gaining traction at an alarming rate. Maya had seen this kind of competition before, but something about West Gold felt different. It wasn't just their market reach. It was their strategy. They were playing dirty. Rumors spread that they were using underhanded tactics, including copying Maya's branding and even undermining her suppliers. She had to act fast. Maya called an emergency meeting with her core team, her trusted advisors, including her cousin, the same one who helped with the Instagram page. They gathered in her office, their faces tense, their voices low. "We've heard the rumors," Maya, her cousin, said, concern written on his face. "West Gold is making a play for your suppliers. They're offering more money to steal them away. And it's working." Maya's face darkened. "I knew it," she muttered. "They can't beat me with quality, so they're trying to beat me with sabotage." "What's the plan?" "We're already negotiating with our suppliers," another advisor added. "But West Gold's been pushing hard. They're threatening to go after us publicly. They're trying to paint us as a company that's been exploiting local producers." Maya didn't hesitate. She had been through so much worse. "Let them talk," she said with steely resolve. "I'm not backing down." She called her legal team and instructed them to prepare for battle. It wasn't just about business anymore. It was about protecting everything she had worked for. This wasn't going to be a simple boardroom fight. This was going to be a battle for her legacy. The war with West Gold didn't play out in a traditional way. The first skirmish came when West Gold publicly accused Maya of unethical sourcing practices. They called it out in a high-profile press release that immediately made headlines in major newspapers and online publications. Maya's team moved quickly, crafting a response that refuted the claims and exposed West Gold's shady dealings with their own suppliers. They proved that West Gold had been coercing local farms to sell exclusively to them at unfair prices and using unethical labor practices. But it wasn't enough. West Gold had deep pockets, and their PR machine was a force to be reckoned with. Maya knew she had to hit them where it hurt: public trust. She planned a public event at A&O's headquarters to showcase their commitment to transparency and ethical sourcing. It was going to be a live-streamed event, with local farmers, suppliers, and chefs all present to discuss the importance of sustainability and ethical practices in the food industry. Maya invited the media, including reporters from the biggest food magazines, and extended the invitation to West Gold's leadership, daring them to attend. The event was a resounding success. Maya's team showcased their partnerships with local farmers, highlighting the positive impact A&O had on the community. She invited guests to tour the facility, allowing them to see firsthand the company's commitment to transparency and quality. West Gold, as expected, did not show up. Their CEO issued a statement claiming they were too busy to attend. But the damage had been done. Maya's event went viral. It was covered by all major media outlets, and the world saw A&O for what it truly was: an ethical, sustainable company that supported the very communities they sourced from. West Gold, on the other hand, was painted as the villain, and their reputation began to crumble. Still, Maya knew the battle wasn't over. The war was far from won. But as she sat in her office later that evening, staring at the news coverage of her victory, she knew one thing for sure. This was her moment to prove that her legacy was unshakable. It wasn't just a company she built, but the people she lifted, the lives she changed, and the world she shaped. Maya's final victory wasn't in what she owned, but in what she gave away. It had been a decade since Maya first walked through A&O Luxury Foods doors as its owner. The company had grown, changed, and evolved beyond her wildest dreams. She had faced every challenge with strength, courage, and vision, and now, A&O was one of the world's leading brands in luxury food and ethical business practices. But Maya wasn't the same woman who had walked into that boardroom all those years ago. She had become a symbol of resilience, a beacon for those who had once been overlooked, a champion for the people who had no voice. And with that, she had a new vision, a new challenge. She was standing in front of a group of young women at a conference hall in Lagos. They were eager, excited, ready to take on the world. And Maya had just finished her keynote address about her journey. "I didn't come here to build a legacy for myself," she had told them. "I came here to build a legacy for us all. It's not about being the best in the room. It's about making sure there's room for everyone." The applause that followed was thunderous. But Maya didn't stay to bask in it. She left the stage and joined the group of women, sitting down and listening to their stories, their dreams. That was her real legacy, the people she mentored, the lives she changed. A&O had expanded globally, but Maya had never forgotten her roots. She still visited the farms she supported, the small businesses that had partnered with her, and the schools where young girls learned about entrepreneurship. She had created a network, a community of people who believed in the same values of fairness, sustainability, and respect. Maya's leadership had become a model for others to follow. She was no longer just a businesswoman. She was a trailblazer, an advocate for women's rights, an activist for the environment, and a fierce believer in the power of collective success. But there was one moment that stood out above the rest. Maya stood in front of the boardroom at A&O one last time, not as the CEO, but as the founder. The company had been passed on to a new generation of leaders. The young women who had worked alongside her, mentored by her, had now taken the reins. As she stood there, she reflected on her journey. She thought about the days when she was scrubbing floors, when no one believed in her, when she was dismissed as nothing more than a cleaner. She thought about the cupcake, the small, insignificant object that had become the catalyst for everything she had built. But what she had built wasn't just a company. It was a movement, a legacy that would continue long after she was gone. "Thank you," Maya said softly, her voice steady. "Thank you for believing in what I believed in. And thank you for carrying this vision forward." Her eyes scanned the room, where the faces of the young leaders now filled the space. They were ready. They were capable. They would carry A&O into the future. And that, Maya knew, was the real victory. As Maya stepped out of the boardroom for the final time, she looked around at the city she had once dreamed of escaping. But now it felt like home. It wasn't the buildings, the cars, or the businesses that made it feel that way. It was the people, the ones she had helped, the ones who had helped her, the ones she had lifted up and given a chance. Maya's legacy was unbreakable, not because of the empire she had built, but because of the lives she had touched. She had gone from being a cleaner to a queen, not through ambition, but through purpose. She had built something greater than herself. And she had shown the world that no matter where you start, no matter how low you fall, you can always rise again. Thank you so much for watching. We truly appreciate your time and support. If you enjoyed the video, please give a thumbs up and don't forget to leave a meaningful comment below. Let us know your thoughts and tell us where you're watching from and what time it is in your part of the world. It means a lot to us to hear from you. If you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button for more amazing content like this. And to all our returning subscribers, thank you for your continued support. We couldn't do this without you. Stay tuned for more exciting videos coming your way, and we'll see you in the next one.